The silence at Althorp House is not like the silence anywhere else in England. It is a heavy historical kind of quiet, the kind that comes from 500 years of aristocratic history and the presence of a ghost who still commands the world's attention. But in the early months of 2026, that silence was shattered by a digital thunderbolt that came from within the very walls where Princess Diana once played as a little girl. This was not a leaked message. It was not a palace worker whispering to a tabloid reporter. It was a cold, calculated, and devastating strike from Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer. He did not simply disagree with a media project. He dropped the bomb at the very center of the Sussex brand. For years, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have stayed afloat in the dangerous waters of global fame by leaning on one powerful foundation, the memory of Princess Diana. It was their get-out-of-jail-free card, their source of legitimacy, their most valuable and bankable asset. But as the world prepares for the 30th anniversary of Diana's death in 2027, the man who holds the keys to her real story has finally and firmly slammed the gates shut. In 4 words that are currently sending shockwaves through Hollywood and London alike, is this a joke? Charles Spencer did not just reject a Netflix proposal. He effectively declared war on what he calls the unscrupulous exploitation of his sister's sacred legacy. This is the story of how a multi-million-dollar media empire built on the foundation of another woman's suffering began to fall apart under the weight of a brother's protection. To understand why this moment is so important, you first have to understand the man who delivered the blow. Charles Spencer is not just another minor royal relative living quietly on the edges of the Windsor Circle. He is the high priest of the Diana legacy. While the royal family manages the official version of the Princess of Wales, the titles, the public duties, the crown-approved story of her life, Charles Spencer guards the woman herself. He guards the sister who was without question the most hunted person of the modern age. He is the man who looked the entire royal family in the eye during his 1997 eulogy and publicly promised that her blood family would make sure her sons were raised with the soul and sensitivity she cherished, rather than the cold, hard rigidity of the monarchy. Althorp is not just a grand English estate, it is a fortress of memory. Diana is not buried in a royal vault or a public cemetery. She rests on a quiet island surrounded by trees she loved, on an estate that has been in the Spencer family for 500 years. Charles is the one who decides who gets access to that island. He is the one who decides who gets to tell the story of the woman who rests there. For decades, he has been a silent and watchful guardian, stepping in only when absolutely necessary and always with surgical precision. But something changed in the last few years. According to analysts who closely study the Spencer-Windsor relationship, Charles has reached a breaking point. He has watched from the sidelines as his sister's life and her very real trauma has been repackaged as marketable content and sold to the highest bidder by the very people who claim to be honoring her memory. His recent and very public rejection is not just a business decision, it is an act of ancestral defense. The spark that started this conflict was a project that was supposed to be the Great Reset for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. By early 2026, the Sussexes found themselves in a very difficult position. Their time at Spotify had ended in a very public and embarrassing mess, with executives reportedly calling them grifters. Their lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, was struggling to gain the high-end attention they had expected. Even Harry's polo documentary and Meghan's cooking show were being described by industry insiders as dull and uninspired. They needed a hit. They needed something big enough to justify their massive multi-year deal with Netflix. The answer seemed obvious. The 30th anniversary of Diana's death in 2027. Netflix executives, hungry for a major series that would attract global viewers, proposed a multi-episode epic. This was not designed to be a dry historical documentary. It was built as a spiritual successor narrative. The goal was to draw a direct and unmistakable line between the challenges Diana faced in the 1990s and the challenges Meghan Markle faces today. The script reportedly aimed to position Meghan not merely as a member of the royal family, but as the modern-day version of Diana, a woman fighting the same uncaring system and the same hostile press. It was a strategy built on nostalgia, on modern conflict, and on a very specific kind of victim story that has become the Sussexes' trademark. But there was one enormous flaw in the plan. They assumed Charles Spencer would simply go along with it. Do you think Charles Spencer was right to reject the Netflix project comparing Meghan to Diana? Or should he have allowed the documentary to be made? Comment yes or no below. And if you believe Meghan using Diana's memory to build her brand is disrespectful to the princess, do not stay silent. Like this video, share it with everyone who cares about honoring real legacies, and subscribe right now to Royal Daily Report. Every like and every share tells YouTube to show what's really happening instead of letting the Sussex narrative control the story. If you think Diana's family deserves to protect her memory, prove it before the next revelation breaks. When Netflix approached the Earl for his cooperation, they were not just asking for a sit-down interview. They were after the golden ticket. They wanted access to Althorp House, to confidential family archives, and to the very heart of Diana's childhood and upbringing. Charles Spencer's involvement would have given the project a level of believability that Harry and Meghan could never provide on their own. It would have told the world that Diana's blood family had approved of the comparison being made between the two women. But when Charles Spencer sat down and reviewed the proposal and saw Meghan's name listed as a primary participant and spiritual guide for the entire series, he did not see a tribute. He saw an absurdity. He saw his sister's memory being used to prop up a failing media brand. His reaction was immediate. From the portrait-lined halls of Althorp, where generations of Spencers look on in silent judgment, Charles reportedly made his feelings extremely clear. He did not just say no. He made it known that the very idea of comparing Meghan's modern celebrity struggles to Diana's life and death battle with the establishment was, in his words, a joke. In 4 words, he dismissed the entire foundation of the Sussexes' American identity. He slammed the gates of Althorp shut, and in doing so, he locked the Sussexes out of the one story that still made them relevant to a global audience. This rejection did not happen out of nowhere. It was the result of years of careful observation by the Spencer family. Critics and royal watchers have coined a term for what they have been watching unfold: Diana cosplay. This is not simply a matter of a daughter-in-law occasionally paying tribute to her husband's late mother. It has been described as a deliberate, prolonged effort to absorb the princess's entire identity and aura. The patterns are too consistent to be accidental. Think about the jewelry. It started with the aquamarine ring worn at the wedding reception, a heartfelt tribute, but then it became a steady procession. The butterfly earrings, the Cartier tank watch, the gold bracelets, items that were not just pieces of jewelry, but icons of Diana's personal identity. Each piece was worn at high-profile public moments, making sure the cameras captured every detail, but the imitation went far deeper than accessories. It moved into the storytelling itself. The 2021 Oprah interview was a masterclass in copying the structure of Diana's own story: the lighting, the pauses, the themes of being silenced, of mental health being ignored. It was a 21st century update of Diana's famous 1995 Panorama television interview. Meghan was presenting herself as the outsider being crushed by the same powerful grey-suited institution that Diana had once warned the world about. For Charles Spencer, watching all of this from Althorp, it must have felt like watching a warped and distorted mirror of his sister's real pain being used as a branding tool. The most crushing aspect of this decision is the psychological damage it creates for one person in particular. Prince Harry is now caught in a position that is truly and deeply difficult. He is trapped between the loyalty he owes his wife and the heritage of the family he left behind. For Harry, the Spencers have always represented the real and human side of his history, the part of him that was not a Windsor product. But by allowing his media ventures to lean so heavily on his mother's story, he has pushed away the very people who stood up at her funeral and swore to protect him. In 1997, Charles Spencer stood at the pulpit of Westminster Abbey and promised to protect Diana's sons. He promised to make sure they were not just trained in royal duty and tradition, but encouraged to have genuine souls and sensitivity. Now, in 2026, it appears Charles believes he is fulfilling that exact promise by protecting Harry from his own choices, by refusing to let the Sussexes use Diana's name for a commercial Netflix series. He is effectively saying that the brand has become more important to them than the truth. It is a rebuke that cuts far deeper than any newspaper headline, because it comes from blood and from history. This decision has also deepened the gap between the two brothers, William and Harry. William has reportedly been deeply frustrated for years about the way their mother's memory has been commercialized. Now, for the first time, he and his uncle Charles Spencer are in complete public agreement. Harry is left even more isolated, drifting in a narrative that his own family has publicly and openly ridiculed. Do you think William and Charles Spencer are right to work together to stop Harry and Meghan from using Diana's story? Or should Harry be allowed to share his own mother's legacy? Tell us yes or no in the comments. And if you believe Diana's real family should have final say over her memory, do not let this moment pass quietly. Like this video right now, share it with everyone who values family honor, and subscribe to Royal Daily Report immediately. When people stay quiet, the Sussex narrative wins. When thousands speak up together, YouTube pushes the real truth about what happened. If you think Charles Spencer made the right call, make your voice heard before we move to the next story. In the cold world of Hollywood, perception is everything. And the perception of the Sussex brand right now is that it is too risky to invest in. Brand strategists are all saying the same thing. The Spencer veto is a fatal blow to their royal-themed content. When the brother of Princess Diana publicly describes your project as exploitation, you have lost the authentic connection that was your entire selling point. Netflix staff are reportedly in a state of serious concern. The 2027 Diana project was supposed to be their one guaranteed success. Without the cooperation of Althorp and the Spencer family, the project loses all of its prestige. It becomes just another unauthorized and sensationalist documentary, exactly the kind of content that audiences are growing tired of watching. This failure to deliver a major project gives Netflix every reason to reconsider their enormous contract with the Sussexes. If Harry and Meghan cannot provide the royal drama the world wants, and their lifestyle content is not hitting the viewing numbers, what exactly is their value to a global streaming giant? They risk becoming yesterday's news, lost in the noise of 1,000 other social media influencers. The financial consequences could be staggering. The Sussex lifestyle requires a massive and consistent income, the kind of income that only top-level media deals can provide. If those deals begin to dry up because the royal connection has been damaged, the entire Sussex empire could collapse as quickly and as suddenly as it was built. Beyond the grand appearance of Althorp House lies something far more valuable than money or land: the private papers of the Spencer family. When we talk about the Althorp veto, we are not just talking about a camera crew being turned away from a country estate. We are talking about the loss of the ultimate prize in royal content. Sources close to the 2027 Netflix project say that the producers were counting on access to Diana's personal handwritten diaries and private home videos that the public has never seen. This was the key that Meghan and Harry were depending on to make their series the most important and definitive account of Diana's life ever made. But Charles Spencer understands something crucial. Once those images are digitized and streamed to millions of people around the world, the mystery of his sister is gone forever. By saying no, he did not just stop a documentary, he protected the last remaining pieces of Diana's privacy from being turned into background footage for a streaming platform. The decision to block access to these archives is a brilliant tactical move. In the world of high-end documentary film, new and unseen material is everything. Without footage that has never been seen before, a documentary about Diana is simply another retelling of an old story. A clip show that does not justify a multi-million-dollar price tag. For Meghan, gaining access to these private materials was going to be the proof that she was the chosen person to tell Diana's story. It was going to cement her status as Diana's modern spiritual heir. But Charles Spencer saw straight through the strategy. He understands that the moment those archives are opened for a commercial project, the Spencer family permanently loses its role as the guardians of Diana's true story. He has effectively pulled the rug out from under the Sussexes, leaving them with a story that is increasingly empty. While Charles Spencer has been the one to publicly lower the boom, many royal insiders believe he is not acting alone. There is a growing whisper in the corridors of power that a quiet alliance has formed between the Earl and his older nephew, Prince William. For years, the world has focused on the bitter rift between the two brothers. But what many have overlooked is the tightening bond between the Spencer family and the future King of England. William, who is famously protective of his mother's image and memory, has reportedly been in regular contact with his uncle about the Netflix 2027 project. This is not simply a family disagreement. It is a coordinated and deliberate defensive strategy. By aligning with Charles Spencer, William has found a way to block Harry and Meghan's commercial plans without ever needing to issue a single formal statement from the palace. It is a move that is as brilliant as it is ruthless. If Buckingham Palace were to block a documentary, it would look like censorship. But if Diana's own blood family blocks it, it looks like a matter of family honor and love. This puts Harry in an impossible position. He cannot lash out at his uncle without appearing to disrespect his mother's own family. And he cannot argue with William without reigniting a sibling feud that the public is already deeply tired of hearing about. The Althorp veto is the first major victory for this new and quiet alliance, proving that when it comes to the real legacy of the Princess of Wales, the blood family and the future king are speaking with one united voice. The impact of this veto is not only being felt in London, it is sending a chill through the hills of Montecito and through the boardrooms of Los Angeles. In Hollywood, success spreads quickly, but failure spreads even faster. For a long time, Meghan Markle was seen as a bridge between the old world of royalty and the new world of celebrity. But that bridge was built on the assumption that she held the royal keys. Now that the Guardian of Althorp has publicly questioned her authenticity, the Hollywood elite are beginning to look at the Sussex brand with a far more skeptical and cautious eye. The concern in A-list circles is what insiders call brand contamination. If Meghan is seen as someone who is exploiting a beloved and iconic figure like Diana, especially when that figure's own brother is publicly calling it out, she becomes a high-risk partner for every major brand in the world. We have already seen the slow and cooling interest from top fashion houses and the sluggish progress of her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. The Spencer veto now acts as a public warning shot to every other potential business collaborator. If you align yourself with this particular narrative, you might find yourself on the wrong side of history. In the brutal world of celebrity endorsements, once you lose the feeling of being real and genuine, the invitations start to dry up. The Sussexes are not just losing a Netflix show, they are losing their VIP status in the very world they came to America to conquer. To truly understand why Charles Spencer reacted so strongly to the Meghan-Diana comparison, we have to go back to the original wound, the 1995 Panorama interview. In the years since that explosive broadcast, it has come out that Diana was essentially tricked into giving that interview through the use of fake documents and careful psychological manipulation. Charles Spencer was the one who first introduced Diana to the journalist involved, and he has carried a heavy burden of guilt about that decision. Ever since, he saw firsthand up close how his sister's vulnerability was exploited for ratings and attention. Now, decades later, he sees a very similar pattern playing out again. He sees a high-stakes media machine trying to use his sister's suffering to generate money and audience engagement. For Charles, the comparison between Meghan's 2021 Oprah interview and Diana's 1995 Panorama interview is not a tribute, it is a repeat of the same predatory behavior. He sees the Sussexes using the same victim language that was once used against and around his sister. By blocking the 2027 project, he is trying to break the cycle. He is refusing to let his sister's genuine pain be used as a template for modern celebrity branding. It is his stand for the real truth of what Diana actually went through versus the polished and carefully edited version being sold to American audiences. The Sussexes have tried to change direction. They have tried podcasts, cooking shows, and polo documentaries, but there is a clear reason why none of these have come anywhere close to the impact of their early bombshell content. The audience is not interested in Meghan the lifestyle guru or Harry the polo player. They are interested in Meghan and Harry the royals. The Diana connection was the one thing that kept the royal dimension of their brand feeling alive and relevant after they moved to California. It was the connecting thread that made them more than just another pair of famous people with a camera and a deal. Now that that thread has been cut by the Althorp veto, the Sussexes are facing a crisis of identity. Their podcast Archetypes was criticized for being overly rehearsed and lacking real insight. Their Netflix content has been called vanity projects. Without the ability to lean on Diana's narrative, they are now forced to stand entirely on their own merits. And so far, the market's response has been at best lukewarm. This is the hidden and most dangerous consequence of Charles Spencer's rejection. It does not just stop one show from being made. It exposes the emptiness of the brand once all the royal elements are stripped away. As 2026 moves forward, the question for the Sussexes is no longer how do we honor Diana. The question is now, who are we without her? In the end, this battle is not really about money, and it is not about fame. It is about who gets to define the truth of a person who is no longer here to speak for herself. Charles Spencer has decided that Althorp will be a fortress of memory, a place where the real Diana is protected from the unscrupulous world of modern media exploitation. He has proven that some things are simply not for sale, not even to his own nephew. As the sun sets over the quiet island at Althorp, the message to the entire world is clear. The People's Princess belongs to her family and to the history of the country she served, not to a media empire based in Montecito, California. The Althorp veto may be the most important and consequential thing Charles Spencer has ever done. He did not just stop a documentary from being made. He saved his sister's legacy from being turned into a product. For Meghan Markle, the realization is slowly sinking in. Some gates cannot be opened with a title or a camera crew. Some gates are closed by a brother's love, and they are closed for good. The ghost of Diana has finally been brought home, and the world, including the Sussexes, must now learn to live without her shadow. Thank you for watching this in-depth investigation from Royal Daily Report. This story is still developing, and the consequences of Charles Spencer's decision are only just beginning to be felt across the globe. What is your take on this quiet alliance between William and Charles? Is the Diana card officially out of play? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned as Royal Daily Report continues to track the final chapters of the Sussex royal career. Goodbye for now.